When every other species fled, humanity held the line. The only sound on the bridge of the UES Vigilance was the quiet, rhythmic hum of the life support system. It was a sound Commodore Eva Rostova had come to associate with the cold, patient emptiness of deep space. For 3 days, her ship had held a stationary orbit over the planet Kylar. For 3 days, the silence from the world below had been absolute. On the main view screen, Kylar shimmered, a jewel of ochre deserts and sapphire seas. From this distance, it was a picture of tranquility. "A lie, anything?" Rostova asked, her voice cutting through the mechanical hum. She didn't turn. From the screen, her gaze fixed on the silent world. "Negative, Commodore," replied the operations officer, his voice tight. "No energy signatures. No communications, not even atmospheric scatter. It's a ghost planet." Rostova's jaw tightened. Ghosts left traces. Kylar was wiped clean. It was a Kthar colony, home to 50 million souls according to the last census. The Kthar were a pragmatic, hardy species, known for their guttural language and tireless work ethic. They were not a people given to silence. "Dr. Thorne," Rostova said, addressing the man standing beside her. "Your thoughts?" Dr. Eris Thorne, a man whose disheveled appearance was a constant, low-grade irritation to the ship's quartermaster, stroked his graying beard. As the fleet's premier xenopsychologist, he saw things others missed. "It's the wrong kind of quiet, Eva," he murmured, his eyes scanning the detailed planetary scans on a secondary screen. "This isn't a tomb. Tombs are messy. War, famine, plague, they all leave scars. This planet has no scars. It's pristine. It's like a library where someone has carefully, silently, erased the words from every book." "Send in the drone," Rostova commanded. "Suborbital pass. I want eyes on the capital city, Klar Prime." The drone, a silent hunter-killer repurposed for reconnaissance, detached from the Vigilance and sliced through Kylar's upper atmosphere. The view screen split, one half showing the drone's descent, the other its telemetry data. The drone's cameras swept over a city of remarkable geometric beauty. Crystalline structures spiraled towards the sky, connected by elegant sky bridges. Parks and waterways were perfectly manicured. There was no smoke, no rubble, no sign of destruction. It was a city waiting for its inhabitants to return from a holiday. Then the drone descended into the streets. The bridge crew fell into a stunned silence. The city wasn't empty. Far from it. Kthar were everywhere. They stood in public squares, sat in open-air cafes, paused mid-stride on the sky bridges. A transport vehicle was stopped in the middle of a thoroughfare. It's Kthar. Driver still at the controls. But they were motionless. "Frozen. Magnify, section gamma," Rostova ordered, her voice a low whisper. The camera zoomed in on the face of a Kthar female. Her multifaceted eyes, normally a vibrant, shifting kaleidoscope of color, were dull and gray. Her powerful mandibles were slack. There was no life there. No thought. Just a vacant, biological shell. The drone's audio sensors picked up nothing but the wind whistling through the silent city. "My God," the operations officer breathed. "They're husks," Thorne said, his voice a mixture of academic fascination and profound horror. "Perfectly preserved biological statues. The mind, the consciousness, it's just gone. This wasn't a weapon that kills. This was a weapon that erases." He looked at Rostova, his eyes wide. "Eva, this is a form of violence we have no context for. This is psychic annihilation on a planetary scale." Rostova's mind, always the tactician, raced through the implications. A weapon that could neutralize a population without damaging a single piece of infrastructure was the most terrifying military tool she could conceive of. It wasn't conquest. It was replacement. You could walk in and take over a fully functional world, its former occupants little more than decorative statues. "How?" she asked Thorne. "A wave? A psychic pulse? Something that targets the complex neural pathways of sapient thought and simply snuffs them out. Like blowing out a candle," Thorne theorized, his mind alight with the terrible novelty of it. "The elegance of it is breathtakingly evil." Before Rostova could process the full weight of his words, an alarm blared across the bridge. "Commodore!" the operations officer shouted, pointing at the long-range sensor display. "Massive FTL signature detected. Warping in at the system's edge. Correction, multiple signatures. Hundreds, thousands of them." On the main screen, space began to tear open. A fleet of vessels, a chaotic assortment of shapes and sizes, began to pour into the system. They were not sleek warships, but battered freighters, bulky civilian transports, and repurposed mining vessels. It was a refugee fleet, vast and desperate. They're Kthar, the comms officer reported, her voice strained. They're broadcasting a standard refugee distress call on all channels. Rostova stared at the unfolding scene. The silent planet below, and the terrified fleet arriving before her. The mystery of Kylar was beginning to unravel. She had a cold, sinking feeling that humanity had just stumbled upon the horrifying answer to a question no one had ever thought to ask. The conference room aboard the Vigilance was Spartan, designed for function over comfort. At its center, a holographic projector displayed a swirling star chart of the local galactic arm. Commodore Rostova sat at the head of the polished metal table, her posture rigid, her expression unreadable. Across from her sat the Kthar elder, Krek. He was ancient, his chitinous exoskeleton a roadmap of cracks and scars earned over a long, hard life. His people had been granted emergency docking privileges. Their battered ships clung to the Vigilance like orphaned children. "Thank you for meeting with me, Commodore," Krek began, his voice a low rumble, like rocks grinding together. The universal translator rendered it flawlessly, but it couldn't hide the deep weariness within. "The honor is ours, Elder Krek," Rostova replied, her tone formal. "But I need answers. What happened on Kylar? What is this enemy?" Krek's mandibles clicked softly, a gesture of sorrow. "It has no name we know. We call it the Great Silence. The Silent Chorus. It is not an enemy one fights. It is a force of nature one flees." He gestured a gnarled claw at the star chart. "My people have records going back 10,000 of your years. Every 2 centuries, like clockwork, it emerges from the void between galaxies. It moves through a quadrant, and everywhere it passes, the silence falls." "Silence," Rostova pressed. "Your world wasn't destroyed. The infrastructure is untouched. The body is infrastructure. The mind is the inhabitant," Krek stated, a line that sounded like an old, bitter proverb. "The chorus does not want our cities or our resources. It wants our thoughts. It consumes consciousness, leaving behind the empty shells you saw on Kylar. Husks." He used the same word Dr. Thorne had, a chilling coincidence. Rostova leaned forward, her eyes locked on the Kthar. "How does it attack? What are its weapons? Its capabilities?" Krek shook his massive head. "You ask the questions of a warrior. We are a species of survivors. We do not study the storm. We chart its path and sail away before it makes landfall. There are no weapons. There is no battle. There is only the shimmering wave, a ripple in space that our sensors can barely detect, and then the silence." He manipulated the holographic chart. A blood-red stain appeared at the edge of the galaxy, slowly expanding, swallowing star systems one by one. The path was a clear, undeniable line. Rostova felt a cold knot form in her stomach as she watched its projected trajectory. It was aimed, like an arrow at a small, isolated yellow star in an uncharted spiral arm. "Soul," she whispered. "Yes," Krek confirmed. "Your star. Your world. It is the next system in the pattern. You have perhaps 8 of your months before it arrives." He looked at her, his ancient eyes filled with a pity she found more unsettling than any threat. "We came to warn you. To offer you a place in our Exodus fleet. Many other species are with us. The Forlag, the Seraphim, the Children of Fun. Every advanced civilization in this quadrant is on the run. We do this every time the chorus awakens. We run. We hide in nebulae and dark space for a century, and then we emerge to find new worlds, to rebuild, until the cycle begins again." "And no one has ever fought back?" Dr. Thorne asked from his seat beside Rostova. It was the first time he had spoken, his clinical curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. Krek turned his gaze on Thorne. It was the look of a man who had seen the end of the universe too many times. "You cannot fight a hurricane, Doctor. You cannot reason with a supernova. You cannot wage war against the void itself. To stand against the chorus is to choose oblivion. It is a mathematical certainty." Rostova's mind raced, processing the tactical data. An enemy with no discernible weapons, that traveled as a wave, that left no physical trace but erased entire populations. It was a problem beyond any doctrine of warfare humanity had ever conceived. We appreciate the warning, Elder, Rostova said, rising. And the offer. We will transmit your data to Earth Command. They will decide our course of action. Krek rose as well, a hint of desperation in his rumbling voice. There is only one course of action, Commodore. Run. Your species is young. You have your whole future ahead of you. Do not throw it away on a point of pride. The galaxy is vast. There are other worlds, other stars. A home is a place, not a planet. We learned that lesson thousands of years ago. He bowed his head and left the room. He left the humans in a silence that was suddenly heavy with the fate of their species. The red stain on the star chart pulsed, a death sentence from the edge of the galaxy. The air in the United Earth Security Council chamber was thick with a tension that felt heavier than gravity. Light from the holographic displays cast long shadows across the faces of the world's most powerful leaders. At the center of the room, a projection of the Milky Way galaxy rotated slowly. The angry red smear of the silent chorus crept inexorably towards a tiny, insignificant speck labeled Soul. Commodore Rostova stood at the podium. Her report concluded. Her words, delivered with cold, military precision, had drained all hope from the room. The chamber doors hissed open. They admitted the alien delegation from the threshold, the hastily assembled refugee city on Luna. Blade Master Kill of the Forelag, a towering figure whose ceremonial armor was etched with the history of a dozen lost homeworlds, strode in. His movements radiated disciplined grief. Beside him floated Lyriel of the Seraphim, a being of soft, undulating light, whose very presence seemed to hum with ancient sorrow. We have come to add our voices to the warning, Lyriel's thoughts chimed in the minds of everyone present. It was a beautiful, heartbreaking melody of despair. For 20,000 years, my people have watched the chorus. We have seen empires that spanned constellations fall to dust. We have seen warrior races like the Forelag brought to their knees without a single shot fired. There is no victory. There is only flight. Blade Master Kill stepped forward, his voice a low growl. My people are warriors. To retreat is a stain on our honor. Yet, we retreat. We retreat because there is no honor in a pointless death. The chorus is not an enemy you can meet on the field of battle. It is a plague of the soul. We urge you, do not let your warrior pride blind you to the truth. Join us. Survive. A heavy silence descended. The leaders of Earth exchanged grim, defeated glances. Fleeing seemed the only logical option. The evidence was overwhelming. The testimony of millennia was absolute. Then, one man stood. Admiral Jace Kincaid, head of the United Earth Fleet, was a man who radiated an almost physical aura of confidence. He moved to the central display, his eyes blazing with a fire that seemed utterly out of place amidst the despair. Thank you, honored guests, for your counsel, Kincaid began, his voice ringing with authority. You have offered us the wisdom of your experience, the wisdom of survival, the wisdom of flight. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. And with all due respect, humanity rejects that wisdom. A murmur of shock went through the chamber. Blade Master Kill's posture stiffened in disbelief. You speak of a cycle, Kincaid continued, sweeping his hand towards the horrifying red stain on the map. A tide that comes in, and all the galaxy can do is retreat until it goes out. You've been running for 20,000 years. 20,000 years. Has it ever occurred to any of you to try and build a dam? He turned from the aliens to the human leaders. We run now, and humanity runs forever. We become another footnote in the chorus's long history of galactic pest control. We abandon the world that birthed us, the cradle of our civilization, and we spend eternity looking over our shoulders for the next time the tide comes in. That is not survival. That is a protracted death sentence. This is not a choice of pride, Blade Master, Kincaid said, meeting the Forelag's gaze. This is a choice of identity. Our history is not one of running. It is a history of standing against impossible odds, of fighting when we should have fled. That is the flaw in our species, and it is the greatest strength we possess. He activated a new display, bringing up Dr. Thorne's research. Dr. Thorne believes the chorus is a psychic entity. It doesn't attack ships. It attacks minds. So, we will not fight it with plasma and kinetics. We will fight it with the one weapon it has never encountered. He looked around the room, a challenging glint in his eye. A concentrated, weaponized burst of human consciousness. The chaos, the logic, the grief, the rage, the sheer, stubborn refusal to die that defines our species. We will build a weapon that screams back into the void. We will build an echo chamber. He deactivated the display. We will hold the line. Here. Now. And we will break the cycle, or we will die trying to. But we will not run. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the projector. The alien delegates were speechless. Then, the president of the Pan-Asian Republic stood, then another leader, then another. Rostova watched as a new feeling spread through the room, displacing the fear. It was a dangerous, irrational, and uniquely human feeling. It was defiance. The vote was unanimous. Earth would fight. The threshold was a city born of desperation. Built in the shadow of humanity's defiance, it sprawled across the lunar dust of the Sea of Tranquility. It was a chaotic patchwork of alien architectures. Four-lag honor halls of angular black metal stood beside the softly glowing, crystalline spires of the Seraphim. The utilitarian, modular domes of the Cthar were connected by pressurized tunnels. It was a city of 100 different species, 100 different atmospheres, and one shared emotion: fear. Commodore Eva Rostova walked through the main promenade. It was a transparent tube that offered a stunning view of Earth hanging like a blue marble in the black sky. It was her job to oversee the integration of refugee needs with Earth's burgeoning war machine, a logistical nightmare of staggering complexity. She moved through the alien crowds with a quiet purpose that commanded respect. Her crisp UNSC uniform was a stark contrast to the flowing robes and hardened carapaces of the refugees. She was on her way to a meeting with the small council of aliens. They had, against all reason and the frantic pleas of their own people, chosen to stay. In a small, shielded section of the threshold, she found them waiting. Blade Master Kill stood like a statue of obsidian, his arms crossed over his chest plate. Beside him, the Seraphim scientist, Xylia, pulsed with a gentle, curious light. "Commodore," Kill rumbled as she entered. His voice was a low bass that vibrated through the deck plates. "I have informed my high command of my decision. They consider it a forfeiture of my rank and a stain upon my honor." "I'm sorry to hear that, Blade Master," Rostova said sincerely. "Do not be." The four-lag warrior replied, his gaze unwavering. "My honor is my own. It is forged in action, not granted by councils. My code forbids me to stand idle while a worthy ally faces annihilation. The four-lag have run for generations. I will run no longer. My sword and my knowledge of four-lag battle. Tactics are yours." Rostova nodded, a gesture of profound respect. "We are honored to have them." She then turned to the shimmering form of the Seraphim. "And you, Xylia? Your people value knowledge and preservation above all. Why risk yourself here?" Xylia's light swirled, forming complex patterns as her thoughts translated into words. "For precisely that reason, Commodore. For millennia, my people have only studied the chorus from afar, cataloging its devastation. We have observed, but we have never learned. Your Dr. Thorne's hypothesis, your echo chamber, it is the most radical, fascinating, and terrifying idea I have encountered in my 9 centuries of life." The light of her form intensified with academic zeal. To fight a psychic entity with a counterwave of pure consciousness is unprecedented. It is an opportunity to gather data that could change everything we know about the nature of life in this universe. To flee from that would be a betrayal of the pursuit of knowledge itself. My understanding of psychic resonance and energy harmonics may be of use to you. It will be invaluable, Rostova said, feeling the immense weight of their trust settle upon her shoulders. These were not mere stragglers. This was a master tactician of a renowned warrior race and a brilliant scientist, from a species that had forgotten more than humanity had ever known. They were the first threads of a new alliance, woven from the courage of a few who dared to hope when the rest of their kinds had surrendered to despair. The Cthar engineers who helped build these halls have also offered to stay, Rostova informed them. They say they are tired of building temporary homes. They want to help us defend a permanent one. For the first time since she'd met him, Rostova saw something flicker in Blade Master Kill's stoic gaze. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. It seems your human defiance is a contagion, Commodore. Let's hope it's a curable one, Rostova replied, though she didn't mean it. For the first time, she felt humanity was not entirely alone. They were no longer just fighting for their own survival. They were fighting for the renewed hope of these brave few, the first sparks of a fire that might one day push back the endless, silent night. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the Global Defense Center was the steel and nerve fiber heart of humanity's war effort. Its central chamber, the War Room, was a cavern of dark metal and shimmering light. The entire solar system was rendered in a stunning, three-dimensional hologram. Here, Admiral Jace Kincaid was not just a commander. He was a conductor preparing for a symphony of impossible violence. He strode around the holographic display, his presence filling the room. His senior officers, the best military minds Earth had to offer, watched him, their faces grim. For weeks, they had been running simulations. For weeks, every simulation had ended in humanity's annihilation. The models are wrong, Kincaid announced, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. They assume we're fighting a conventional fleet. They assume the enemy thinks as we do. The Kthar and Forlag confirmed it. The chorus doesn't have tactics. It has instincts. It doesn't strategize. It hunts. Therefore, we will not present it with a battle. We will present it with a puzzle. We will present it with Operation Anvil. He gestured, and the holographic display zoomed out to the frigid, dark edge of the solar system. Layer 1. The Kuiper Gambit. Pinpricks of light appeared on hundreds of icy bodies in the Kuiper Belt. These are not missile silos. They are repurposed mass drivers, the same kind we use for asteroid mining. On my command, they will launch 2,000 ice comets, each, the size of a small city, directly into the chorus's path. One of the generals frowned. Sir, kinetic impact against an energy-based entity? The energy transfer would be negligible. Precisely. Kincaid shot back, a sharp glint in his eye. This is not a weapon. It is a question. We are asking the chorus. How do you react to a physical threat? Are you intelligent enough to differentiate between a real attack and a meaningless barrage of rocks? How quickly can you process and neutralize thousands of simultaneous, unintelligent threats? The ice is bait. Its reaction will be the answer. Dr. Thorne needs to put the finishing touches on the echo chamber. He swept his hand, and the display shifted to the majestic rings of Saturn. Layer 2. The Titan's Veil. The hologram blossomed with 50,000 new icons swarming around the gas giant. These are not warships. They are sensor drones, each one programmed to mimic the energy signature of a human cruiser. We will create a ghost fleet of 50,000 ships. The chorus will be forced to expend immense psychic energy to probe every single contact, to sift the real from the imaginary. We will fatigue it. We will irritate it. We will make it work for every kilometer it advances. Finally, his hand motioned toward a familiar red dot. And here, at Mars, is the anvil itself. A network of heavily armored plasma cannons materialized from the planet's surface and its two small moons, Phobos and Deimos. This is our only conventional line of defense. It is where we will commit the fleet. It is where we will make them believe our final stand is to be fought. It will be brutal. It will be bloody. And it will be a lie. He pointed to a single, highlighted icon moving into position behind Mars. It was the UES Harbinger, because the real battle will be fought by one ship, the Spearhead. While the chorus is distracted by our fleet, while its senses are muddled by the veil, and while it engages the anvil, Commodore Rostova will take the Harbinger on a burn straight through the heart of the battle and into the center of the entity itself. He looked at his officers. Their faces were a mixture of horror and dawning awe. We cannot kill this thing with cannons or missiles. But Dr. Thorne and the Seraphim, Xylia, believe we can give it the psychic equivalent of a seizure. The echo chamber is not a bomb. It is a tuning fork designed to resonate with the chorus's own hive mind frequency and overload it with everything. That makes us human. Our logic, our chaos, our pain, our hope. A single, focused scream of defiance. He fell silent, letting the sheer, terrifying audacity of his plan settle. He was not just planning a battle. He was orchestrating a multi-layered, system-wide deception. A grand, cosmic gambit that used astronomy, psychology, and brute force in equal measure. He was playing chess with a hurricane, and he was betting the future of his species on a single, desperate move. "It's insane," whispered the general who had questioned the comets. "Yes," Kincaid agreed, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. "But it's our kind of insane. And it's the one thing in this universe the silent chorus will never see coming." The UES Harbinger held its lonely vigil in the dark, cold space beyond Neptune. On the bridge, an unnatural quiet had settled over the crew. Every eye was fixed on the long-range sensors. Every soul braced for the arrival of the impossible. Commodore Rostova stood beside her command chair, a pillar of calm in a sea of tension. Her gaze was locked on the starfield. Waiting.it began not with a flash or a rupture, but with a subtraction. A patch of stars simply vanished, as if a hole had been chewed in the fabric of the universe. The hole grew, a perfect circle of absolute black that did not reflect light, but consumed it. From this wound in reality, the silent chorus began to pour into the solar system. It wasn't a fleet of ships. It was a wave, a shimmering, multi-hued curtain of energy that defied physics. It moved without propulsion, its leading edge rippling, like silk in a non-existent wind. Sensors struggled to resolve the image, spitting out contradictory data. It was both matter and energy, both present and absent. It was a living paradox, beautiful and utterly terrifying. "My God," Dr. Thorne breathed from the science station, his usual academic detachment shattered. "It's like a hole in reality is bleeding into our own." The chorus swept past Neptune, its shimmering form bathing the gas giant in an ethereal, ghostly light. Its first target was Triton Station, humanity's furthest outpost, a tiny speck of light and life clinging to Neptune's largest moon. The station's icon on the tactical map glowed green, then amber, then red. And then it went dark. "Triton Station is unresponsive," the comms officer reported, his voice hollow. No distress call. No final message. Just silence. Rostova closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. She pictured the 300 souls stationed there. Friends, colleagues, now husks. The first human casualties of this impossible war. When she opened her eyes, they were chips of ice. Admiral Kincaid on secure channel. The comms officer announced that Kincaid's face appeared on Rostova's personal monitor, his expression grim. "They're on time. Report, Commodore. The entity is as described. Triton Station is lost. We are holding position." Confirmed. Kincaid's voice was steady, a rock in the storm. "You have your orders. Execute Kuiper Gambit. Godspeed, Harbinger." Rostova straightened. "Acknowledge, command. All stations, execute Kuiper Gambit on my mark." She waited, watching the shimmering wave advance. It was methodical, unhurried. Mark. From their hidden positions in the icy darkness of the Kuiper Belt, 2,000 repurposed mass drivers fired in perfect unison. A storm of ice and rock, comets the size of mountains, surged toward the silent chorus. It was a display of physical force on a scale humanity had never before unleashed. The chorus paused. The shimmering wave seemed to slow, to consider the thousands of physical objects hurtling towards it. For a tense minute, it simply observed. On the Harbinger, Thorne and Xylia worked furiously, their fingers dancing over their consoles. "We're getting readings," Thorne exclaimed. "It's probing them, analyzing their composition, trajectories. It's intelligent, Eva. Highly intelligent." Then, as if it had completed its calculations and found the threat wanting, the chorus acted. It didn't fire weapons. The shimmering curtains simply pulsed. A wave of focused psychic force, invisible and silent, washed over the incoming comets. They didn't explode. They sublimated, turning from solid ice to vapor in an instant. They left nothing but a trail of glittering dust that the chorus consumed as it passed. "Gambit neutralized," Rostova reported, her voice devoid of emotion. "Dr. Thorne has the final calibration data." "Understood," Kincaid replied from Earth. "The veil is yours to command." "Deploy the Titan's veil," Rostova ordered. Near Saturn, 50,000 drones activated, their engines flaring. To life. They swarmed out from behind the planet's rings, a ghost fleet that filled the sensors with the energy signatures of a massive armada. This time, the chorus showed a flicker of hesitation. The shimmering wave distorted, its colors shifting, as it processed the new, complex threat. It slowed its advance for 12 precious minutes. Its vast consciousness sifted through the phantom signals, trying to distinguish the real from the illusion. Then, apparently deciding the entire display was beneath its notice, it ignored the drones. It continued its implacable journey inward. A river of cosmic death flowing towards Mars. On the bridge of the Harbinger, the mood was somber. Their grand strategies, the clever gambits, had been swatted aside like bothersome flies. They had learned more about their enemy, but the lesson was a terrifying one. The silent chorus was intelligent, powerful, and utterly unimpressed. "It's heading for the anvil," the tactical officer stated, his voice tight. ETA 46 hours. Rostova stared at the view screen, where the silent, beautiful, terrible enemy grew ever larger. The puzzles had been solved. The feints had been made. Now, all that was left was the brutal, bloody reality of the fight. The real war was about to begin. The space around Mars became a charnel house. As the silent chorus swept past the orbit of Jupiter, Admiral Kincaid gave the order. Engage the anvil. From the crimson dust of Mars and the scarred surfaces of its tiny moons, humanity's heaviest guns roared to life. 100 hidden platforms unleashed a torrent of plasma and directed energy. It was a coordinated storm of destruction aimed at the heart of the shimmering wave. It was the greatest concentration of firepower humanity had ever assembled, a wall of pure energy meant to halt any conceivable foe. The chorus did not even slow down. It flowed over the plasma bolts as if they were nothing more than light rain. The shimmering curtain washed over the first defensive platform on Phobos. There was no explosion, no satisfying detonation. The platform's weapons simply went silent. Its energy signature vanished. On the tactical display in Kincaid's war room, the icon for its 20-person crew switched from green to gray. Husks point one by one. The platforms of the Martian anvil were extinguished. The human fleet, 200 strong, surged forward to meet the enemy, their own weapons blazing. They fought with a desperate ferocity, weaving between the silent platforms, trying to concentrate their fire. But it was like trying to shoot the ocean. Their energy bolts dissipated harmlessly into the shimmering wave. And as the chorus drew closer, ship after ship began to fall silent. On the bridge of the destroyer Agincourt, the captain screamed. A final, defiant curse before his mind was erased. Aboard the cruiser Thermopylae, the crew watched in horror as their sister ship, the Marathon, drifted lifelessly. Its crew turned to statues at their posts. The battle for Mars was a massacre. Humanity's finest ships and bravest soldiers were being neutralized without a single shot fired in their direction. The psychic pressure was immense, a low hum of static at the edge of hearing that promised oblivion. Aboard the threshold, Blademaster Kill watched the tactical display. His warrior's heart filled with a familiar, bitter resignation. It was happening again, just as it had for his people, just as it had for every species. The initial, foolish bravery, followed by the inevitable, silent defeat. He had been wrong to hope. These humans, for all their fire, were no different. In the Global Defense Center, the mood was one of grim despair. "The fleet is being dismantled, Admiral," an officer reported, his voice cracking. "Casualty estimates are total. It's not a battle. It's an execution." Kincaid stared at the hologram, his face a mask of stone. His grand strategy had failed. The anvil had broken. He opened a channel to the UES Harbinger. His voice was strained, but it did not waver. "Eva, it's not working. The fleet can't hold them. It's your turn. Go. Now." Aboard the Harbinger, Rostova's voice was preternaturally calm. "Acknowledge, command." She turned to her helm officer. "Bring us about. Course is 180, Mark 0. All power to engines. Get us to the center of that thing." The UES Harbinger accelerated. It was a silver needle aimed at the heart of a god. It dodged the drifting, silent hulks of human warships and plunged directly into the shimmering, reality-warping curtain of the silent chorus. The view screen dissolved into a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and swirling energy. The ship shuddered, not from physical impact, but from the sheer psychic force pressing in on it. Alarms blared as the crew fought to stay conscious against the crushing mental weight of the chorus. "We're inside its psychic field." Thorne yelled over the alarms. "The crew can't take much of this." "Xylia now," the Seraphim scientist her light form flickering violently, worked in concert with Thorn. The frequency is locked. The chamber is charged. Commodore, Thorn shouted. It has to be now. Do it, Rostova commanded, her knuckles white as she gripped her chair. Fire the echo chamber. Thorn slammed his hand down on the activation panel. There was no sound, no explosion, but a wave of something new erupted from the Harbinger. It was not energy. It was not matter. It was a focused, weaponized blast of pure, unadulterated human spirit. It was a billion conflicting thoughts, a symphony of irrational hope, cold logic, burning rage, profound grief, and the stubborn, animalistic refusal to simply lie down and die. It was the psychic echo of every human who had ever lived, fought, loved, and lost, concentrated into a single, piercing scream. The effect on the silent chorus was instantaneous and catastrophic. The shimmering wave convulsed. The impossible colors shifted to hues of pain and shock. The entire entity, which stretched for millions of kilometers, visibly recoiled. The psychic pressure on the beleaguered human fleet vanished in an instant. On the threshold, Blademaster Kill stared at his monitor, his mandibles hanging open. The tactical overlay showed the unthinkable. The red wave of the chorus, the unstoppable, eternal force of nature, was contracting, pulling back from the single, tiny human ship at its center. By the forge of my ancestors, the four-lag warrior whispered in stunned disbelief. They heard it, but the victory was costly. On the Harbinger, the bridge was a wreck. Consoles sparked, and the echo chamber's massive containment ring had fractured, venting raw psychic energy. Containment failure, Thorn yelled, clutching his head. The core is going critical. The chorus, though wounded and disoriented, was already beginning to recover. The shimmering wave steadied, its retreat halting. It was poised to lash out, to crush the thing that had caused it such unprecedented pain. That Rostova's mind was clear. The calculations were simple. She looked at the tactical display, at the reeling but still extant enemy, and at her crippled ship. She saw her duty. Dr. Thorn, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Can you overload the core? One final pulse. Thorn looked up, understanding dawning in his eyes. Yes, but it will breach the reactor. It will vaporize this ship and everything within 1,000 kilometers. Do it, Rostova ordered. She opened a channel to the crew. All hands. Abandon ship. This is not a drill. Evacuate to the escape pods immediately. Then she looked at Thorn. You too, Doctor. You and Xylia. Get out of here. Your knowledge is too valuable to lose. Thorn hesitated, then nodded grimly and helped the struggling seraphim toward the escape pods. Rostova remained on the bridge, a lone figure amidst the dying systems. She strapped herself into the command chair and opened a fleet-wide channel to Kincaid. Her voice was steady, a final report from a soldier who had completed her mission. Admiral, we held the line. Make it count. She watched the last escape pods launch. Then, she laid her hand on the console, initiating the final overload sequence. She thought of Earth, a blue marble she would never see again. The US Harbinger detonated. It was not an explosion of fire and shrapnel, but a silent nova of pure psychic force, a final, defiant shout into the void. The concentrated blast struck the recovering chorus with the force of a supernova. The shimmering wave shattered, breaking apart like glass. The fragments fled back into the deep, dark space from whence they came, broken and utterly terrified. 1 month later, the main hall of the threshold was unrecognizable. The frantic, chaotic energy of a refugee camp had been replaced by a quiet, determined solemnity. Where once there were desperate huddles, there now sat formal delegations. The banners of the Four-Lag, the Cthar, the Seraphim, and 24 other species hung beside the simple blue and white flag of the United Earth. The fleets had not fled. They had stayed. Admiral Kincaid stood before them, not as a conqueror, but as a partner in a victory paid for in blood. Beside him, Dr. Thorn and the Seraphim, Xylia, prepared to present their findings. Commodore Rostova's sacrifice was not in vain. Kincaid began, his voice resonating with quiet strength. The silent chorus has retreated from this galactic quadrant. Long-range listening posts confirm it is wounded, disoriented. We have won more than a battle. We have won time. Dr. Thorn stepped forward. his usual disheveled appearance now seeming more like the forgivable eccentricity of a genius who had saved the galaxy. We have analyzed the psychic feedback from the Harbinger's final pulse. The data has given us a profound and terrifying new understanding of our former enemy. The display behind him lit up, not with tactical maps, but with complex diagrams of consciousness and psychic resonance. The silent chorus is not a malevolent entity driven by a desire to destroy, Thorne explained. It is a form of life so ancient and so vast that its own consciousness is its entire universe. To it, the thoughts, the emotions, the very existence of younger, individual minds like ours are not signals to be interpreted. They are noise. Agonizing, chaotic, painful noise. A murmur went through the alien delegations. Xylia's light form floated forward, her thoughts adding clarity to Thorne's words. For eons, it has silenced civilizations not out of malice, but as an act of self-preservation. A being, swatting at static that disrupts its eternal song. It was not committing genocide. In its own alien mind, it was simply seeking peace and quiet. Blade Master Kill rose to his feet, his gravelly voice filled with awe. Then the weapon, the echo chamber, was the first time any species has ever successfully communicated with it, Thorne finished. We shouted back in the only language it could possibly comprehend. A focused, overwhelming wave of our own psychic noise. We caused it pain. We showed it that some static can, in fact, bite back. He paused, his expression becoming somber. In Commodore Rostova's final act, that was not just an attack. That was a message. A statement of defiance so pure and powerful that the chorus could not ignore it. She did not just save us. She achieved first contact. The weight of that revelation settled over the hall. They had not merely defeated a monster. They had spoken to a god and made it bleed. Kincaid looked out at the assembled leaders. Humanity paid the price to hold the line. But we cannot hold it alone forever. The chorus will recover. It will adapt. We must be ready. It was Krek, the old Kthar elder, who spoke first. For 10,000 years, we have run. Your people have taught us that there is another way. The Kthar will no longer be refugees. We will be builders. Our fleets will help fortify this system. Blade Master Kill slammed a fist against his armored chest. The Forlag will stand with you. We will train your soldiers. You will teach us your insanity. Together, we will forge an army this galaxy has never seen. One by one, the leaders of the other species pledged their support, their resources, their knowledge. The old fear that had governed their lives was being burned away by the heat of humanity's defiance. The Galactic Coalition was born that day, not in a pristine, ancient council chamber, but in a refugee city on a barren moon. It was founded by the survivors of a war no one else had dared to fight. Humanity, the young, reckless upstarts from the galactic fringe, did not become rulers. They became something far more important. They became the cornerstone of a new hope, the species, that proved that when faced with the abyss, it was possible to not only stare into it, but to make the abyss blink first.